The map intros have always just been like, you know, the cool factor, the icing on the cake, that sort of deal. But we do hop into game number 2. Spawning here in the upper left side of Reynor. He's up 1-0 in this qualifying round for the Ting Open. Here in the wild card qualifiers, it's Euronics Gaming's FireCake.
In the bottom left, as the pink Zerg, he is Reynor for Team True Esports. That's what we decided.
That's what we're gonna go with. If you change the name of your team, you can't expect everyone to know it right off the bat, because it was Team Extreme Supremacy for years, from what I understand. By the way, I'm sorry I missed both of these. Shizik or Shizk donated $5 back to back and said Ting Ling and Ting is bling. Your rhyming skills are surprising.
Ha 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 ha. Oh. Well, no early pools, but they both go for safe pools. FireCake is not going. They're both not going to accompany them with gases? Huh. I'm still waiting for a gas, but it looks like it's not happening. There it is. For Reynor, at least.
I was gonna say, maybe someone's going. Maybe this is like the recreation of the Penguin series, right? And then they play gasless to throw down the hatchery, the choke.
Yeah. We have seen a couple of people bring back gasless openers, you know, Violet trying to a couple of his games, and then if it's not gases entirely, it's very quick to those roaches, skips the Baneley nest, and it can work, especially on specific maps, like Arena, I suppose, where you can, you know, get that choke blocked off, but it looks like it's just going to be a later gas for FireCake. For being such a short, aggressive map, not having an early pool, not having early speed, is a little surprising. I would say if this is any other map, then FireCake should go ahead and try and get a game with mutas, as it worked so well last time, but Arena would be the one map where I'm just like, not so much. No, they get any indication that you're going mutas, and they're going to attack you, and it's going to hit way before your spine colors finish.
Yeah. I just want to point out, actually, there's a lot of different ways to deal with mutas, obviously, right? Like, we've seen some of the late games go towards things like Vipers, fungal growths, you name it. Hydras, obviously, are not the worst choice in the world, but unfortunately, Production Getting can't really put Reynor in a bad spot. I was going to say, though, one of the things we didn't see out of Reynor that I've actually really enjoyed seeing when the muta count isn't too high is heavy queen counts. I know Namshure's the guy I always go to at this, and we've seen it out of a couple others. Namshure's the only one I ever remember making it look so good. But if you've got like 9 queens to 9 mutas, the queens win those fights pretty much every single time. Downside is their mobility isn't that great, and you need creep spread to carry them around. But that's where, again, you start seeing people take into that consideration Nidus worms, and you go for a lot of queens / roaches and just pop up on the other side of the map.
Yeah, it's a plan. FireCake did, entirely skip that speed, so just straight to roaches. I mean, you can be a little greedy without getting speed, you know? You get a few more drones, and maybe you get like a faster +1 or something like that, but just the use of lings can be so important sometimes, and they're actually the best at, of course, reinforcing an attack, since they're going to be speedy, which looks to be Reynor's plan here. Roaches, lings on the way, speed finishing up at a very nice time here, and FireCake only has a handful of roaches and a spine crawler in the back.
In the front.
Oh, Mobby. Well.
Yeah, made in the bag before, of course. Well, that's kind of like an arrow pointing which direction you want to go.
That way.
Yeah. So Reynor dedicating a lot to this and not being able to get past that choke could be a problem. He does run around the map with the lings, which is kind of cool. If you can get us surrounding the roaches in any capacity, it won't be too bad, but of course he's not going to have to actually take the fight around the choke. Now the question really comes down to Ravagers and who's going to have them. And so far it looks like neither. A little bit odd to see, because usually it's the attacker that comes in with at least a Ravager or two. You can force engagements a defensive player wouldn't otherwise want to take, but Spine Crawler is going to get focused right away. Drone's also going to get pulled immediately. FireCake is not underreacting to this at all. He knows the gravity of the situation. Loses a couple of drones, holds that front line. Lings are dealt with, and now the Roach is on retreat.
This isn't so bad, though. Reynor is kind of catching up in drones, as he's droning right now as well. And they have kind of split off with FireCake still a little bit in the lead. His army actually was quite nice to meet the army of Reynor, and so he still has a lead there. He could try and counterattack. In fact, that's exactly what he's going to try and do. He's going to make sure that Reynor doesn't get too much droning behind this, or that alternatively he gets more droning than Reynor, I guess is a better way to put it, is he has 7 drones now on the way. And they're both going to disengage.
Now, the reason Ravagers have been proven to be really good, too, in these early situations specifically, obviously we actually see them fall off later, and casting games of players like Vortex, amongst others, we've been seeing Pure Roach take precedence, but having a couple Ravagers early on for the attacker is really nice, especially because you've got that mobility. You know, Roaches don't come built in with speed, Ravagers do, not to mention that wonderful range, but... I really would have liked to see Reynor put Ravagers into that attack, I suppose. Not that he's in a bad spot, as you pointed out. Drone counts even, both players heading towards thirds. I mean, all things considered, the army supplies on both sides of the field are good enough to hold a small defensive fight, and no one is really all-inning. It is going to be FireCake who dives towards that layer a little bit quicker and starts his +1. But again, it takes so much more than that to just necessarily get ahead. It's when you actually have Roach speed done. It's when you have the +2 advantage over your opponent. That's when these upgrades really start kicking in and showing how strong of an advantage it can be.
Yeah. But it's going to get there eventually, and FireCake is going to be the first one there. Reynor, once again, holding off on his lair, just like last game, a lot later than FireCake's. Actually, a little worried about that. We'll see, though. I mean, you brought up Vortex for, like, the mass Roaches, but then earlier today, we actually saw Sulky with almost mass Ravager do well in a situation where he really was not supposed to. He ended up losing because he was just that far behind in the game, but he took amazing fights with Corsair Bioshots.
I was going to say, though, like, I don't know, like, for that series you were referencing, and for those who want to go back and watch it, it's Sulky versus Hydra on Preon Terraces. That was so much more in Hydra, like, taking really bad fights, though, than Sulky. Like, Sulky just put down regular Ravager shots, and Hydra kept walking into them. Like, he just knew he had money. He didn't care. And so those fights, went really well. But the likelihood of that happening to both players who are in a hypothetical situation controlling their armies perfectly, that probably doesn't happen.
Probably. But that's why Ravagers, I think, are not just entirely, like, in favor of Vortex going for pure Roach, but... we do still see some Zergs go for a lot of Ravagers. We see some Zergs only go for 4 to take care of the Overlords. And yes, we see some Zergs just go entirely for Roaches right now. It's lots of choices, which, it's still at the end of the day, it's mostly Roach versus Roach. But it's with a little diversity, unlike Heart of the Swarm.
Yeah,
Yay.
I mean... So the build-up to this has been a bit slower than even expected, but that aside, I mean, this is going to be a pretty awkward fight for Reynor coming in. If you had just pushed through and caught FireCake through the choke, that'd be different. But again, really want to emphasize, no speed done yet. It's going to be in the favor of FireCake. That might not actually play to his advantage, though, weird enough, because you're going to take that speed to where? You're going to fall back to your natural base, right? The places speeds really works out well is when you can pick and choose fights on your opponent's side of the field and then have something to fall back towards. I hope Reynor knows this. I mean, like, Reynor is almost, I feel, deliberately not going for speed. Because at this point, there's no way it's an accident for it to be this late.
It's like there's no lair, like, in general.
Yeah,
so
he's, like, it's brute force all in, and it's questionable if it'll work.
I wanted to say he was all inning, but then he wanted to get up his drone count a little bit, and he does get the +1. It's just everything's so much later. His +1's only going to have, like, 15 seconds to hit, and then he's going to be behind in an upgrade again. FireCake is looking better as the game goes on, but Reynor still has a bit of bit of that army supply lead. If he finds a good concave, that'll certainly work to his favor, but he is at that point where he's gonna have to start finding those things because it's gonna be a necessity, not just a nice thing, as FireCake continues to get a lead, even on that 4th base. He's gonna have a Spire, potentially for just the slight small meter transition that sometimes occurs. Ugh. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna get Invitation Bit 2 and go for, like, a hive, but I think it's just going to be for a small amount of mutas. We see those sometimes end the game, actually. Not recently, but sometimes.
There's a lot of things that, like, I always find odd. We never expect to end a game, but sometimes will. Again, like Patience, 1 Hellion, a small Zergling run by that should never have gotten by. Like,
yep.
StarCraft 2 can be played to perfection, and you make one small mistake, and it can actually snowball so quickly sometimes.
Yeah. I remember Snoot going for like 10, 12 Mutalisk, and that was barely enough to hold on against what is a really dedicated attack. Not necessarily get all in, right? But you didn't have a Hydra sending them an Invitation Fate, and because he cleaned up the army, the other guy just tapped out. So it can happen.
Like, for Reynor, I'm just saying, like, he can't go through this choke. He knows the danger of that choke. Why not just go through the middle of the map, man? Like, kill those rocks and just bust through. You've got so many roaches. He is going for speed. So, I mean, like, Lair came out slowly behind this. Speed starts up. +2's on the way. What's funny is, like, this may end up playing to the point where it's an even army engagement. FireCake is throwing some spines. These will definitely help, but there's no creep spread to really use that in the open. So that's kind of a fallback. And I think if you're at that point where you've lost the fight and you have to fall back to your natural, you've probably already lost. But FireCake's gonna be the one who pushes, and Reynor, again, that's speed not done. He's gonna be slower to the party for this. So is this a Zerg base trade? 10 mutas are on the way. I think FireCake's intending to this be as base tradey as possible.
He will win because his roaches can find the spire of Reynor. Reynor would only have about 11 mutas anyways because he's restricted by gas.
Yeah. Ace 1, Ace 2, guys. Ace 1, Ace 2. There's havoc all over the map.
Oddly enough, Reynor does have speed, so his lings are going to be a little bit better at finding all of these buildings. Maybe that's the one thing that brings him back into this game, but it's like, it's not that many lings.
So does anyone
I think it is going to be more about those mutas.
Does anyone have drones out on the map? That's a really big question right now. It looks like Reynor does, actually. Reynor could, with 2,000 minerals, build a bunch of hatcheries all around the map. And if this is base race actual in its truest, sincere form, I actually don't think FireCake can win it. In fact,
FireCake is running out of buildings.
And he's running out of drones. He may have thought, like, okay, I've done enough, but as we see for Reynor, these drones... Oh, Reynor, please recognize that you got to build some hatcheries or extractors or something. Actually, funny enough, these mutas are cleaning this up so quickly. Oh, no. He was trying to fall back? Oh, no. He was trying to fall back to the ramp to take advantage of the high ground concave, but the mutas cleared this up, and that's game.
Yeah, it is. Plus, FireCake did sneak a drone out to the far right. Just one single drone. Could have put a hatchery anywhere to the right, a little bit below.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, so...
Ooh. So, Reynor's got almost no supply. GG. That wasn't a bad choice out of Reynor with how weird that game went. But congratulations to FireCake. With that 2-0, he will officially have earned his qualifier spot this time around. So, congratulations to him. Now, for us, is Penguin done his match versus Disrupt?